So I'm kind of on a time crunch for this video considering how close this is to the album actually coming out. So please excuse me if I just put some random gameplay in the background at times. I'll probably just do Tetris or some dumb shit. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the fall off. J. Cole is a rapper that needs no introduction. He's been one of the biggest in the rap game since the early 2010s and is still heavily discussed to this day. Partly because of his apology to Kendrick during the Drake beef in 2024, but that's something we'll get into later on. If you've been following his career since about 2018 or so, you'd know that he's been teasing his final album, The Fall Off, which he's been hyping up as this magnum opus, a project that took him an entire decade to craft. And I guess before I give my predictions, let me say this. I'm a fairly big fan of Cole. I love 2014 Forest Hills Drive and For Your Eyes Only. I also love the off season. The warm up was a great mixtape too, though I didn't like KOD, but I also have not listened to a good chunk of his discography, so I might not have as much insight as someone who may be more familiar with his music, so keep that in mind as you're watching this. So with that out of the way, let's finally discuss The Fall Off. The one single that we have from the album is Disc 2 Track 2, or Inevitable as it reads on the track list he released. And J. Cole essentially raps about his life in reverse order. This isn't exactly groundbreaking, as Nas already did this concept over 2 decades earlier with his song Rewind off of Stillmatic, but this is still impressive nonetheless. He keeps the same flow and essentially the same rhyme scheme throughout the entire song too, and the insight that he gave into his own life in the song is the kind of stuff that I like to hear from Cole. This is where my first prediction comes in. I think this is far from the only song in this category that we're gonna hear from Cole. I feel like The Fall Off, or at the very least one of the discs, is gonna be very introspective. It's gonna be Cole rapping about his life and things that are important to him, while keeping his top-notch technical ability that's pretty much become a staple at his projects like The Off Season, and his legendary feature run that happened after that album. But what I'm questioning at this moment is if the entire thing is gonna be a concept album. And if it is a concept album, is it very loose, or does every song fit into some sort of storyline? We can't exactly answer this question with the one song we have and the snippet from the end of its music video, but it's hard to imagine that Cole would work on this album for the past 10 years and just make it a collection of songs that he thought were good. Not that I'd be opposed to that. Not everything has to be this high concept art piece, but it just doesn't seem like Cole is heading for this album to be another off season. It seems like what he's looking for is the perfect project to cement himself in the rap game forever. He even said on one of the tracks off his mixtape Might Delete Later that The Fall Off was like Jay-Z dropping Reasonable Doubt last. Those are insanely high expectations that I don't know if anyone would be able to meet. I have confidence that Cole can still make a solid project, but I don't know if he'll be able to make something that will shake the rap game up. I think that even if Cole drops a masterpiece that everyone grows to love eventually, it's going to disappoint people at first. That's the problem with rolling it out the way Cole did. If it's anything less than perfect, people will be ripping him to shreds for it. Also, I'm just really nervous that Cole is going to release something that isn't up to par. I'm hoping that I'm wrong about that. In fact, if any of you are seeing this video later on and my worries didn't age well, feel free to comment about it. Helps my engagement. But I don't know if he has what it takes at the moment to make something truly amazing. His Might Delete Later mixtape, although still an okay project, is way below Cole's normal standards, and that was only released 2 years ago. If he's operating at that level for The Fall Off, we could be in for some trouble. Though he did recently release a 4-song mixtape which has some of the best rapping I've ever heard from him, and that put my hopes up significantly. But I can't act like I'm not still nervous, especially since this is a double album. This could very well just be a me thing, but personally, double albums can be such a slog to get through, especially if both discs feel the same essentially. For example, I'm doing a Pink Floyd tier list video that should be out a little bit after this one comes out, and while I do love their double album, The Wall, it's just way too long for me. I just tend to not like super long albums, so while this might not be as much of an issue for others, it's something that I'd rather not deal with, especially since some double albums really don't deserve their runtime and could have been cut down significantly. So that's an issue for me, but it may not be an issue for others, and maybe this is the best way for Cole to get his ideas out there. Who knows at this point? But even without the whole double album problem, there is the elephant in the room that we need to address, the Kendrick and Drake beef. I promise I won't focus on this for too long since it's been dragged out to death and I'm sure you guys just want to hear about the music, but it's something I have to mention nonetheless. Since J. Cole apologized for his Kendrick diss track in early 2024, he's been looked at fairly differently in the rap game. A similar thing has happened to Drake, albeit for very different reasons, so the big three is basically dissolved as of now. And I just have one simple question. How does Cole's decision affect his overall legacy and the reception of his album? Will the hip-hop community still take him seriously even with his shortcomings? And honestly, I'd still argue yes. Cole's perception now is probably more divided than it's ever been, with people either loving him for his talent or hating him for the apology. But at the end of the day, he's still J. Cole. His talent speaks for itself, himself, even if he sometimes does not come through with as good of projects as his contemporaries do. I do feel like people will be paying attention to him, especially since The Fall Off is one of the most anticipated rap albums of this decade at the very least. At the very least, this thing will be topping charts and having top 10 singles. But I feel like we'll be hearing conversations about this album for a long time. If this ends up being Cole's final album, and it very much seems like that's the case, I hope he comes at it swinging. Show people that his position in hip-hop is solidified. No matter what happens, I'll still be listening to Cole, and no matter how hard it'll be for me to listen to a double album, I'll be listening to this thing all the way through when it comes out, and we'll see what happens from there. Anyways, I'm gonna conclude things here. Sorry for being inactive, but that's about to change soon. New videos very soon, and I hope you guys enjoyed what I have in store. So yeah, until next time.